1:30 remaining. One minute. Forty-five seconds. Seconds. Twenty seconds. So you will have no prep time for your last lunch.
Thank you for everyone coming again. My opponent has not negated the fact that GMOs are a threat to the environment. She had presented no proof that GMOs indeed are not harmful to the environment or even to the consumption of GMOs. Furthermore, the use of GMOs are more harmful to the environment and our ecosystem than the benefits. My opponent has stated that GMOs is not currently addressing the food crisis in the world. If it is, it would have seen evidence that the malnutrition has been declining over the years as GMOs have been used. And my opponent today has not given any facts or raw data that shows that GMOs has decreased malnutrition in the world. And simply that is not the case. Furthermore, we're talking about the US. We cannot get sidetracked and focus on GMOs in other parts of the country. My plan is to increase regulation since it is harmful to our ecosystem in the US and environment. It has nothing to do with the success of the Philippines and Romania and their ability to genetically modify organisms and increase their crop yield. Furthermore, I would present the case that reducing GMOs will open the market for more countries wanting to use our products. Because currently, a lot of the African and European countries accept GMOs that the United States currently use. Thus, for that reason, if we decrease the amount of GMOs, actually it will be beneficial to the malnutrition in the world if we reduce GMOs and allow for more trade between other countries to do more humanitarian work. My opponent gave no data that labeling would do anything to decrease the environmental harms that I presented. My opponent did not state that labeling will help the mutations or genetically mutations or reestablish the caterpillars from the monarch or do anything of that matter that I presented. Labeling will further increase the cost of GMOs in food, but it would do nothing to address the economic concerns. Furthermore, by not addressing the economic concerns and harms, he has conceded that, and furthermore has made my argument that it is a problem in our environment and we need to seek to address that. Funds, I was another concern. Funds, like I said before, would not be increased because the funds already being used in the USDA will be transferred to the EPA, so no funding will be increased. If restriction GMOs and their usage by analyzing the risk potential will be a betterment of our country, so we could live in more environmentally friendly environment and would open the opportunity for other countries, such as the EU or African countries, to partner with us and help some of the chronic malnutrition that my opponent has already stated, since currently they do not accept GMOs products. So reducing and restricting the use of GMOs would be more beneficial than putting on another labeling to the use of GMOs, which would not help the environment. So, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, Kaelyn, you have 2 minutes and 5 seconds.
Am I allowed to bring up another thing?
Nope. Okay.
So I can only address the things that you brought up?
No, you can address anything that you brought up.
Okay.
So you just can't bring up something new. $130 remaining. One minute remaining. Seconds.
If it's kind of like a sketchy reference, does it still, can I still use it? Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's on.
All right.
I think 6 minutes.
6, yeah.
Okay, thanks guys for coming, everybody. I'd like to get right started to it. My opponent brought up that GMOs have this huge effect on the environment and are this huge threat. And although this might very well be a concern, there are certain things that can protect against this. For example, government funding can support seed banks. The Global Seed Banks Person Beverly launched 2015. National Center for Genetic Resources, Fort Collins, Colorado, is located on the campus of the Colorado State University. The National Center of Genetic Resources is home to one of the world's largest gene banks. The center is unique in that it does not simply host genes, but various types of germplasms or collections of gene information, including plants, animals, insects, and microorganisms. The NCGR, as part of the Agricultural Research Service, is to conduct genetic research for the development of new cultural varieties. This is a fallback necessarily if there are any biodiverse problems, which there haven't really been other than that one. Also brought up that other countries aren't, it doesn't matter because we're regulating things in the United States, but other countries can be examples for us. For example, So again, other countries can be an example. So for example, in India, they tried to regulate GMOs with just Kazimir Springer Science and Business 2010. Legislation has never been the problem. Rather, it is will to implement regulations. Particularly in poorer economies, that has been the issue. The regulatory framework for GMOs in countries that are parties to the protocol requiring a balance of both regulation and awareness among the stockholders. As the experience of India, which tried extensively to add environmental legislation to counter threats to biological diversity in the environment, yet they faced opposition from farmers who adopted transgenic crops. The regulatory regimen established to enforce biosafety of GM crops proved to be completely ineffectual. They were rendered irrelevant by farmers' capacity to find and breed transgenic seeds underground. And they did this because there was a need. There was people starving and there needed to be GMOs because that was the only way for them to get enough food to help people. And so even though there was regulation, it didn't do anything. And there's also a relation to GMOs opening up the market, but again, there's plenty of countries that still use the United States for things. We aren't necessarily the biggest crop grower anyway, so it wouldn't affect that much. Also, he did touch a little bit on how there are some benefits to GMOs on the environment, but that they aren't worth it. But I argue that they are. From this article, GMOs developed with sustainable technologies can be used to create positive environmental friendly practices. Staff publication, International Services for the Acquisition of Biotech Services 2014. Plants can be created that increase water use and fertilization efficiencies, that remediate soil contaminants, increase no-till or low-till practices to help reduce greenhouse gases and produce higher land yields without increasing land usage, particularly in developing countries. To achieve truly sustainable agriculture must use the best of all its practices. From Mendel to Charles Darwin, we have had this idea of technology and evolution making things better. So if survival of the fittest is what we're going for, then why don't we use the best things that we have? Although oppression occasionally breeds genius, in this case, perhaps literally, we need to be able to work through these things. And regulations might constrict how much people are researching, how much people are learning, reading, testing these things out. So again, if technology can make things better for malnourishment and just generally everything, then why would we take a step back? I want to touch on a little bit more about how I was referring to my opponent brought up that labeling might increase the money, but regulation, again, would make it worse for consumers. I have an article here that small diverse farms are less efficient than large ones, and thus the price is higher. This is Haskell 2014. Tim Griffin, the director of Agriculture, Food, and Environmental Programs at Tufts University, Friedman's School of Nutritional Science and Policy, explains the dynamic simply: economic of scale. He calls farmer market products luxury goods. These organic things that people have grown are so much more expensive than the GMOs produced, and they're not nearly as effective nutritiously or as easily maintained. So again, I'd like to reiterate how the benefits of GMOs are worth it, how other countries can be examples, and that regulation might not even fix anything except for bump up the price and hurt social food insecurity, and that biodiversity can be fixed.
Yeah, you can finish the sentence.
Okay, I'm not doing.
Alright. Breathe.
This is the last one.
Yep.
And do I have to stay on case or off?
We're all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just kind of guessing here.
Yeah.
Right. opponent has stated that seed bank would be a great resource to have, and I agree with her. However, we should not address the environmental problems after they have occurred. We should not address the environmental concerns that GMOs have in our environment and create a what-if plan after many organisms have ceased to exist, and create a seed bank to try to bring them back to our environment. Why don't we address the problems? And this is why I am asking to test and to create more research, to conduct more research, so we can see the risk analysis of using GMOs and the potential to decrease the GMOs, since they have currently shown to have damaged our environment. Furthermore, my opponent gave no data or information that in the U.S. currently there's a malnourishment problem. However, cited India as an example. If there's no problem already in the U.S. with overwhelming people starving, how have GMOs would not, decreasing the usage of GMOs would not affect that. Furthermore, GMOs are harmful to our environment, and greater risk analysis need to be developed, because currently for the precautionary principles not being applied to the degree that is needed. GMOs, as we have stated already, has impact on our environment, and because we have seen how pollen from BT corn has decreased some of the bioorganisms living in streams. For this reason, if we move the regulation from the USDA to the EPA to more of an agricultural environment, then we'll see exactly that GMOs have indeed affected the environment, and taking steps to decrease the GMOs in our system. This is an environmental issue, and clearly we should address it as such. So with that being said, the U.S. The U.S. federal government should increase restrictions in the development of the sale of genetically modified organisms.